Hello everyone, welcome to Painting Crafty. If you're new here, my name's Melanie. Welcome for my returning art and craft friends. I'm so glad you're joining with me today because I'm going to be showing you how to draw step by step a Tim Burton character. You know, I had never watched a Tim Burton movie before at all until I joined this collaboration. Today I'm a part of a collaboration group called Beetlejuice, hosted by the lovely Annie with Indie Annie Jones. You're going to find the link to her channel inside of the description box, as well as the playlist for all of the other collaborators. We're all going to be doing something about Beetlejuice or Tim Burton movies. Like, I'm not going to be doing Beetlejuice. I'm going to be doing the Sweet Caroline. I'm going to be showing you, oh, and I just said it wrong, Coraline. That's a part of the movie. She gets very upset when people call her Caroline because her name is Coraline. We have that in common a little bit. My name is spelled very unusual. It's spelled Melonee. No one ever spells it right. And sometimes they say it very unusual. But I don't get upset when they do. It's just a part of it. That's what happens when you have a mom who wants to name their child something creative. You might get an unusual spelling, like mine and Coraline's. Well, let's go ahead and start, and I'm going to show you step by step of how to draw her, and then I'm going to show you some easy watercolor techniques to fill it in if you would like. So grab your pencils and some paper, and it can be any kind of paper, even if you just want to sketch. If you can draw circles and triangles for the chin, you're going to be able to create this sweet character. So come on in and join me. When drawing Tim Burton's characters, they mostly have exaggerated facial features, and Coraline is no exception. She too has exaggerated features. The shape of her head is kind of like a marshmallow. If you were to hold it sideways, it's kind of got that squishy little circle with a little bit of a straighter line on the edge. That's how he drew her face. Now to do her chin, it's just a slight little triangle shape underneath. Start off to the side where your cheeks drop down and create that little dip in the middle. That's going to be where your chin will be. Most of Tim Burton's characters also have slim little skinny necks. Coraline's no exception either. She has a small little neckline. Draw a line on each side of your chin, and that's where your neck is going to be. Now to do her face, she does have this exaggerated hairline. It's very much what gives her her look. She's got this cute little bob hairline. So go ahead and start off to the side of her head. She has a side part. Go ahead and swoop off, doing a little S curve. And when you get to the side of her head, stop. Just stop your haircut there. Do that on each side. The one towards looking at it from my left is the larger of the part. So go ahead and swoop that over, go all the way out to the edge or the top kind of squarish part of her head and stop. Now to create the bottom of her bob haircut, come down more towards the bottom of your cheek area, and this is where you're going to create the end of her hair. So you're simply going to just draw a little line, kind of curve it a little bit to give her hair a cute little look, and then come right on up. Now her head is more square at the top, and we definitely want to keep that shape to the look of this little Coraline. So when you're rounding it around, it's not so much a round, eggy-ish shape. You definitely want to have a little bit of a squareness to this little gal. The way I drew this one, the part on the hair at the bottom on the right hand side that I'm drawing is a little bit bigger there. Now she also has those cute little ears, and we're going to be adding those in as well. After you get this part drawn, take a little bit of time and look at what you've drawn and see if it makes sense. Does it look good to have that squared off top? Does it look right to have where you ended your hair? It's okay to erase. I often erase, so don't feel like you can't erase. You most definitely can. I'm going to be creating some grid lines to be able to help me draw her facial features. I drew one down the middle from the top of her head down to her chin, divided that area into half, and that's where I'm going to be putting her eyes. And then I drop down from the eye line and do another line halfway through, and that's where I'm going to be putting her nose. And right underneath that will be her little mouth. These lines really do help set the foundation of how I'm going to be drawing her face. Eyes are round ovals. They have lids on the top. If you want to put those in, I thought that looked good. So you're going to be doing a little smile face shape, I believe is what I drew, or a sad face shape. Either which way you draw it, that will be, you want to just do the same on each side. And then on the inside of her eyes, she does have brown eyes, so I'm going to be creating those little circles inside of there, but leaving room for white as well. So we have our dark area, that's the iris, and then she's going to have a dark area for where the pupil is. You know, once you get those eyes colored in, it really does bring her to life and does make a difference. Now here I'm doing her little nose, and she has a rather turned up nose, so I'm doing a little bit of a triangle shape, kind of a little diamond shape underneath, and then adding two little tiny little nostrils, and I'm just swooping this nose up. It's got a curve to it, it's not straight. So Coraline has this little turned up nose, and that's another thing that makes Coraline look like Coraline. Drop down ever so slightly where you end your nose, and we're going to create her lips. She has very thin lips. If you take an M and make it very kind of flat, and then do a smile face shape across and just do a simple little loop underneath, that's about all she has for lips. She does have very big, expressive eyebrows. Make them large, curl them across, and that is another look that makes her special in her character. Let's add those little ears in. If you come straight across from her eye and make little C shapes on each side, that's how she was drawn, to make those little ears look like they're poking out from her hair. They're so cute. She has a little freckle pattern on each side underneath her eyes. She has three little dots that are close to her eyes, and then one dot that is off-centered from the top one, and one dot that's off-centered from the very bottom one. It's another cute little accent to this character. Coraline was created with a little hair clip in the design of a dragonfly. So when you do your dragonfly, just do a little round circle at the top and then make a longer, skinnier body. The dragonfly wings drop down from the head and then come out on each side, individual wings, so there's two on each side. The movie starts out with Coraline wearing this yellow slicker, rain slicker, and she wears it often in the movie, so I decided to add that look for her when I drew this one. So when you're drawing her shoulders, just come straight across underneath your neckline. Don't go too much farther past the size of her head. Tim Burton's characters are slender, skinny little characters, and Coraline has that same body. There's a cat character in this story of Coraline, who's a major part of the movie. He's got a very unusual look. He looks kind of like part bat, part cat. I don't even think he had a name. I don't really remember. All I know is that the characters said he was feral. He didn't belong to anyone. He too has exaggerated facial features. If you start with a triangle shape where it's rounded at the bottom, we're even going to go even further. His little jawline is even tighter. Like I said, he has a very unusual facial features. Now his ears are kind of drawn like large bat ears. They have a little bit of crazy little fur on the ends. This one is facing forward and we're going to see the whole ear. So I'm drawing a triangle shape, erasing down below, and you're going to be adding that front piece. The other ear is facing away from us, so we're going to see the part of the head drawn in front and just the back side, kind of the curving over of the ear. It's a little different perspective, but it's still got that bat-like look to it. He has rather large eyes as well, like so many of the Tim Burton characters have. So we'll be adding those on too. Here I'm just adding a few little bit of crazy little hairlines. He has a very unruly look to him, very much like a wild feral cat might look. So here I'm bringing in that jawline. It really does curve in. It's rather pointy, even more so than Coraline's. Because the eyes are a major part of this character, I'm going to be dropping that nose very low. The shape for his nose is rather like a heart shape, but a little bit more rounded, and that is his nose area. He's going to have a simple little muzzle hooking down, so down to the right, down to the left, and that's how you're going to create his muzzle. Now to create that center nose piece, it's a rounded piece that comes around is how Tim Burton drew him. So you're going to come down into the side of that inside of that heart shape and then make a U that's coming out slightly. So gently come out, and then your eyes are going to be built off of that. So this is where we're going to be drawing those big old round eyes on each side. The cat character was drawn with big eyelids too. So when you're drawing your eyelids, just do big old smile face shapes across the top, and that's how you can create the eyelids. This character is painted with blue eyes that are really pretty and dark irises on the inside. When drawing this part of the eye, do a double loop around the bottom and then create your little circles on the inside. The dark part of the pupil is created like a shape of an almond at the bottom. If you figure two half almonds on the inside, that's what that shape will look like there. The cat's body is drawn in a similar manner of being long and skinny. It's got a very much a long, straggly look to this kitty. His tail has a long tail. Go ahead and do a question mark shape and then curve it back. And then once you have that curves added on there, just double back and create your tail. He definitely has a very long, skinny tail. This cat character does have a very unusual look to him. Between those big old eyes and that long, skinny body, he's got quite the look. And yeah, he does have some big old whiskers off to the side, just to finish him. This peculiar looking cat character ends up being a hero in the Coraline story. He helps Coraline defeat the evil button-eyed character, and he turns out to be a hero in the story. Towards the end of the story, the time is ticking on Coraline to figure out how to defeat the evil person. And at one particular time, the button image goes over the moon and creates this creepy little shadow. So I decided I would go ahead and add that design into my composition. I also wanted to add some of the words from the movie, and the words I chose was, "The braver you are, the more you will see." Once I had my composition figured out, I went ahead and traced it onto watercolor paper. So next step is the watercolor step. So hopefully you'll continue on and join me with this step as well. I'm going to be using some colored crayons to create a wax resist look. Crayola makes a neon version, and I love using them in my watercolor. They're just a nice bright pop of color. I'm going to be using these on the moon and the star areas, and some on that little button image as well. I'm going to start with the white crayon and then go right over my moon. Now watercolor paper is bumpy, so you're still going to see some of the color of the watercolor transfer underneath there, but the wax on top will resist some as well. It's a fun look, and you will be surprised what kind of look you can create with just some watercolors. I do need to mention that before you use your color crayons on top, make sure you have erased all the items that you want to erase. If you use an eraser over color crayon, it turns into a smeary mess. So do it after you've done all of your erasing. Once you have your drawing complete, you can use whatever art medium you would like to use. Colored pencil, continue on with colored crayons, use some acrylic paint, it really doesn't matter. But today I'm going to be using watercolor. If you're new to watercolor, you always want to start light and bright and then work your way dark. With watercolor, you're basically painting the shadows. It's just the opposite of acrylic painting. The character Coraline has blue hair. It's very much a bright part of her character. I'm going to be starting with some light blue here, and I'm taking my wet paint on dry paper. Watercolor has a unique characteristic of that the paint will only flow where the paper is wet. Since this is very much a stylized character, I'm going to be doing a lot of the same technique of putting wet paint into dry paper. That way I have more control of where my color goes, and I don't have a lot of chance of my colors will mix together. My color will only stay where my paper is wet. So as long as I'm not adding extra water to the outside of her blue hair, that color will stay right in there. So I'm tapping a little bit of darker blue now into that wet area. And because that area is wet now, that color will mix and blend on its own and create, I like to call it a little watercolor magic, and create some blending of color all on its own without me doing much to it. I'm going to continue with the same painting process of taking wet paint into a dry area. When I want to do a different area in a different color, I just need to make sure that I'm not touching that wet area. So if I want to come down and do the yellow, wherever it might touch my blue hair, I might want to skip that part before I were to start. If my blue runs into my yellow, I'm going to end up with green, which isn't a look that I'm really looking for. Watercolor is definitely one of those mediums you have to be okay with the idea that you might not have total control over what you're painting. But in my opinion, watercolor has that beautiful translucent look, and the layers do really make a difference. So it's well worth the idea of not having control, complete control over what I'm painting. When painting with watercolor, to get the variation in your color, it has to do with the amount of water and pigment that you have. Your first layers are often mixed to tea consistency, and then you come up to the idea of mixing your colors to a milk consistency. More pigment, less water. The more pigment you have, the darker and the richer colors you're going to have. And the more water, the lighter your colors are going to be. So it's a bounce back and forth of adding more pigment and more water. The important part to remember about watercolor is that once you cover up your lights, you really can't bring them back using watercolor. You could always add some lighter colors in by choosing to use an ink pen or by adding in a little bit of acrylic paint and make it a mixed media piece. But if you're going to use watercolor, you want to leave some of your white, bright areas showing, because once you cover them up, you can't get them back. When painting this cat character, it was a little bit tricky. He's a black cat, and how do you get enough interest in your colors? Again, start yourself light, add more water into your black pigment, and start light. You can always go darker as you travel, but you can't back it up once you get too dark. So he's going to be kind of a charcoal looking cat, and then I'll add my layers of dark as I go, making it a little bit more rich and darkening the colors by adding less and less water. On my channel, I do weekly draw along and painting tutorials. If you enjoy art and would like an opportunity to practice, come on over. I break the steps down, make it easy to follow, and you too can enjoy the process of drawing and painting. I'm a firm believer that art isn't just for some, it's for everyone to enjoy. And if you haven't interested in doing it and have opportunities to practice, you too can get your drawings and paintings to look just the way you would like them to. Let's start working on the background of this painting. I wanted to create a beautiful night sky. I'm using the color Payne's Gray, which is a lovely mix of gray and blue. And because that color crayon is behind there, I can wash this color over the background, and where the stars are and the moon is, it's going to resist that color of my watercolor. But you're still going to see little bits and peaks of that color shining through that color crayon because the watercolor paper is bumpy and won't be completely filled in. I love creating this look of washing that dark midnight sky over the top of it and seeing those little elements of the color crayon poke through underneath. Once my paper has completely dried, I'm going to be adding some mixed media elements on top. My go-to white pen is the Uniball white ink pen. For doing subtle shades of white, I like to use the Sharpie China marker. These black pens from the Microns, they are perfect for adding permanent touches of black. And since Coraline is a character or a cartoon drawing, she looks great completely outlined with some black elements. To strengthen the white color of my moon, I'm going to be using my China marker. The China marker is a great white accent that adds soft shades of white with not being too bold. This is going to just strengthen that wax underneath and add to that little bit more of the brightness of my moon. In the animated movie, Caroline's hair and the cat and their eyes have very much a glitter quality to them. So I brought out my glitter gel pens, and it worked perfect just to add a little bit of that magical glitterness to my painting. Gel pens are a great tool to use. Just one thing to keep in mind is that they do take a little bit longer to dry, so when you're using them, make sure you're not dragging your hand through the glitter. It does take a little bit more time to dry, but they're a perfect tool to add this little bit of magical quality to your drawings. I want to take this time to say a special thank you to Annie for putting together this fun Beetlejuice collaboration. You're going to find the link to her channel inside of the description box. Take a few moments, pop over there and see what Annie might be creating. As well as go ahead and click that playlist. The fun thing about playlists is that once you click that button, the videos will just run one after the other. And I'm sure you're going to be inspired by seeing what everyone creates in today's Beetlejuice collaboration. You know, I'm not for sure if I've ever would have watched a Tim Burton movie if it hadn't been for this collaboration, and I'm kind of glad I did. So thanks, Annie, for putting this collaboration together. The very last step I did was to trace over my lettering. It was a little tricky once I got to that waxed area, but I was able to get my micron pens to work. I had a lot of fun creating this little Coraline drawing. I'm hoping you too grabbed your pencils and at least joined in some sketching fun. Make sure to stop on over to my page anytime and take an art break. I have lots of videos on drawing and painting. I decided to use this antique egg basket as a creative framing solution for her. I simply put her in and then used a little bit of tape on the back so it wouldn't be permanent, but it would be a fun piece to display for the season. And here she is, looking pretty on top of this hutch. If you're new to my channel and you like art and crafts, come on over and check out my channel. I'd love to have new subscribers come and join me. Go ahead and click that notification bell so you get a notice of whenever I put up a new tutorial. Give me a thumbs up if you found this tutorial helpful and that you might have learned something new. Leave a comment and let me know what your favorite Tim Burton movie might be. I understand there's a new one coming out, so you're going to want to watch if you're a fan. Well, that's it, my friends. Thanks for taking an art break with me today.